So the point, Steve, is that when in our meetings and as we go forward, on Friday, we had to address what was going on because it was already starting, and knowing that we were leading into the weekend that was going to be really heated up, most likely, and accentuated the craziness and all. We came back on Monday and went right to it again, and we break up, and we have teams within our team, so we have a kind of a setup makeup where we can really visit and let guys speak their hearts and talk about how this is impacting them and how it's affecting them, and so that we could all share in everybody's stories. That's the process that we went through, and we've been here before, and we've been through this before. For my younger players, the guys that are the rooks, that are coming in, it's an opportunity for them to hear from our leaders, and we have marvelous guys that speak on behalf of the communities and speak on behalf of their families and speak on behalf of themselves as teammates. They show the way for younger guys how they can speak and talk, and it's okay in our environment to communicate. All in the hopes of just finding some kind of sense of understanding, and then how do we take the next step with this new experience that we've just lived through, and it's so horrific as it is. It's again is what kills us, and Papa, again it happened. We were facing it again, and unfortunately, the fear of it happening again ahead of us is just unbearable to me to think of. But anyway, so the point is that we're trying to interact as much as we can with our guys and hear from them and listen and learn and grow and find a place where we can act and do something really positive, which our club has done that over the years, but we need to do more, and we're never done, and we can't live. I know the white guys in my staff, as you said, we have a bunch of guys on both sides of the table here that have different issues and backgrounds. We can't live with an oblivious way of looking at this. We can't do that. It's the privilege that, like you said, Pop, white people have. There's this living in oblivious to what's going on. That ain't okay. And so I'm trying to convey that to my guys, that we see it that way, and then we're trying to learn from each other and see if we can move ahead, together.
I think one of the components to this whole awareness is just the education part of it, and I think it's actually embarrassing, but a lot of American history has just been omitted from our textbooks. And I've had a couple of players who have been really interested in race relations and politics and history. David West, who I know you coached, Pop, yes, in San Antonio, and also Andre Iguodala. And I remember having a conversation with Andre a few years ago, and we were talking about race and this subject of admission of this great sin in our country. And he said, "Coach, have you ever heard of the Tulsa race riots?" And I said, "No."
It's a great example.
Yeah.
Great example.
And he says, I said, "No." I said, and I'm put on my heels. I said, what tell me about them. And he explains this basically this incredibly successful African-American town called Black Wall Street. Everybody in town it was a really thriving town, and there was an altercation between a black man and a white woman somewhere in Tulsa, and basically the whole town where these African-American people lived was attacked, and dozens, if not hundreds, were killed, and the whole neighborhood was burned down. I took American history in both high school and college, and I never heard of that. So what does that say? We don't even teach it to our children. And so if we're not teaching this stuff, if we're not actually sharing the information that's important, how are we going to ever understand what people are actually facing?
Right. 300 people were killed in that massacre. 300.
Yeah, couldn't you just see that? I think that there could be such value if in the educational system that we taught the history of racism in America, or maybe history of racism. The effort it would take to get the curriculum there, to get the teachers and get the parents and the families to allow that to be brought into their schools, that whole process may be as valuable as the actual teaching that happens in the classroom for the kids. But without recognizing that history, without acknowledging it and calling it exactly like it is, what are we talking about? How no wonder people don't know. No wonder
Yeah.
people can remain oblivious. No wonder they can stay living in privilege. If we're not even bringing out the truth, that we just need to get the truth in front of us.
Yeah.
And then I would, gosh, I wish we could figure out how to get that in their classrooms, you know?
Coach, it's such a great point. It's how do you hold someone responsible if they're just totally ignorant,
Right.
have no idea about what has gone on? And that's why this pressure has to be constant by white people, whether it's whatever municipality you're talking about, whatever school board. Sure, that's a tough slog for sure. It's going to be difficult to get something like that done, but it's a great point. I was in a TV room the other day with my 8-year-old granddaughter, and I was watching the news. She happened to walk in, and it was the exact time where they were replaying this policeman with his knee on George Floyd's neck. And I didn't realize she was there. And I turned for whatever reason. I saw her standing there, and she was just staring. And she said, "Poppy, why does that man have his knee on that man's neck? What is he doing?" And I was dumbfounded. I turned it off.
Hmm.
And then I thought, should I have left it on and explained it to her? Or how do I explain it to her now that I've turned it off? And I made some feeble attempt, but I didn't know how far to go, how deep to go, what age is it? Is it she ready or not ready? And I thought, wow, that's a problem for me. And then I thought, what about a black family? Do you think they have a problem talking to their kids and figuring out what's going on here?
Yeah.
Uh, so it's so convoluted and complicated that, as Steve said earlier, everything sort of fades away if we don't have that initial admission, that sorrowful recognition of what went on in the past and what has continued. And I don't know how many people are able to do it, but even if they were the most selfish people in the world, it's for their benefit too, even if it's
Yeah.
for the wrong reasons.
As we send out a message for what we're talking about today, there's one really clear thought that we could support. That let's see if we can step this thing up educationally and make it available so that our generation of kids coming up and our grandkids, Papa, I know exactly, we're talking about our grandkids right now. How do we speak to them? How do we help them understand? And we range from 1 to 11 right now, you know. We're trying to help them understand how they're going to take their next steps and how they're going to understand the relationships they have with the black kids that they grow up with. They're growing up with black kids in their sleepovers and their best friends and all. How can they handle what's coming, you know, down the pike? And if we don't give them tools, they're not going to be prepared for it.
Here, here, coach.
You know, some that comes to mind to me, Steve, is about Pop's talking about leadership. You know, and being in the positions that we're in, we have learned that leadership is about the other people. It's about holding ourselves accountable to help those around us be what they can possibly be. And without that connection, there is no leadership. If you don't have the connection to the people that you're serving and hold yourself accountable for all of the people that may be listening to us, you know, that are in those positions, you got to take those tough stands. You got to stand up for it and stand up for what you know is right and be willing to take the hit because it's the right thing to do. And then good things happen because you're doing things for the right reasons, you know, and you can make it through the hard times and you can rebound from the setbacks and the problems. But it comes from the principle of just serving others and doing a good job with it and letting yourself be scrutinized because we live with that and have the courage to suck it up and do it, you know. And so
No, it's a great point. You know, and I think we're in an era now where athletes are really more likely to speak out, to make their voices heard than we've seen probably since the civil rights era. You know, Jalen Brown drove 15 miles or 15 hours from Boston down to Atlanta to join the protest the other day. You know, the Players Coalition, made up of some of the former NFL players, Anquan Bolden, Demario Davis. I know Malcolm Jenkins is very very involved work done, uh, doing a ton of great work in on the front lines in our inner cities, trying to help with these very issues that you guys are talking about.
I important. And I don't know how somebody could be at their best unless we keep pushing them that way. We got to
Yeah.
keep pushing them to find themselves and find their voice.
That's a culture. You know, coaches created that culture, and that allows people to feel comfortable and to be transparent, to share ideas. And as you well know, Steve, you know that's what we've tried to do with our teams over these last couple of decades. And it makes for not just a happier family, but a family that feels responsible to each other. They enjoy being with each other. They're proud to be there. And if we can help that, whether that means having guests come in or certain books that are provided or discussions like coach is having with his teams now, it's our duty to do that. We have that responsibility to keep that sort of a culture alive, and the more those cultures exist, the better off we're going to be.
To me, it's become more apparent how important it is to promote teammates and team. And more than ever, it's always been the team game for us in our sports that we played. But more than ever, the awareness of our guys to be great teammates is more valuable to me and more important to me than it ever has been in my coaching. And what that means is that if you're a great teammate, then you're concerned for others. And the great Bill Russell was in our meeting rooms, just like you're saying, Pop. We had him in a couple years back, and out of nowhere, he said, you know what it takes to be a great teammate? He said, you got to get up every morning thinking about how you can help one of your teammates be better. And I thought, holy crap, think of that awareness, that you would have that awareness that you wake up in the morning thinking about your point guard, you're waking up in the morning thinking about my wide receiver. What can I do to help that guy be great? Well, that kind of mentality doesn't have to only be on our teams. Why couldn't that mentality be what it feels like to be an American? That I am part of the team, I am part of this thing, and what can I do to help the people around me? Kennedy said it a long time ago. And well, why would that not be as important as ever, as opposed to look out for what I got, protect your own, look out, save me. I just think it's such it's a clear thought that, and it takes direction and leadership, and I know this too, Pop. You said it, that it's an environment of you feel good about being there. You feel comfortable. You are a little bit happier because you're doing the good work.
Yeah.
You're helping people, and that is so fundamental. But doggone, it's powerful and it's important. And I don't feel it enough, around us. I wish we could feel it more. I wish we could promote it more wherever we go.